Here we go in 3, 2, 1. With us right now, it's Alex Bäcker. Alex, you are the co-founder and CEO of Drisit.com, and you are also the author of the book, 101 Clues to a Happy Life. Alex, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Josh.
Well, let's start by talking about Drisit. What is Drisit?
Drisit is a platform that allows anybody to fly a drone from their phone or computer remotely anywhere in the world. And it also brings a shared economy to drones. So it essentially allows a drone owner to share their drone with anybody else in the world and make a profit with it.
And why would they do this? Thinking of business owners who are listening to this right now, who ought to be considering making sure that they're using drones in this way?
Well, if you can use, think back to the invention of the telephone by Alexander Graham Bell over 100 years ago. He first demonstrated that people could actually talk to somebody who's not in the same room, and the explosions of that multiplied, right? When you are able to talk to anybody, not just somebody who's in the same room with you, communications explode. Same thing happens. We're a visual species. We can use seeing anywhere in the world. We're just not used to the fact that we can do that. We're used to seeing only in front of our own eyes, sometimes in front of a camera that somebody opens up for us in a video conference, but we don't have a way today to at will see anywhere in the world. Drisit changes that. And so the applications are limitless. If you are in construction, you want to make sure that you can monitor your construction as it goes on, not sending somebody across town to fly a drone, then come back, upload the footage, but doing it on demand in real time whenever you want to. If you own farm, you want to be able to monitor crops and livestock in any time, real time, not having to fly there. If you are in security, imagine the applications for seeing, not just with a camera that's stuck in a fixed angle and that people can work around, but rather be able to fly around anywhere. If you're in filmmaking, what's the power of being able to scout ahead or take footage anywhere without having to move your whole crew there? If you're in if you have any kind of infrastructure monitoring, right? If you're a utility, if you're a telco, if you have any kind of infrastructure that requires periodic monitoring, this allows you to see it remotely from the office at any time in real time.
So where are the, so let's say it's a construction site, for example. So the drones are just on site all the time, is that right?
The drones can be on site all the time. It's really up to the user, right? So you can have drones wherever you want to have them. And the point is you can monitor those drones and their footage in real time and control them from anywhere else, right? So you no longer need to be tethered to your drone, controlling it with a remote control right next to it. You can be, you can have a construction site in Mexico and be monitoring it from Texas, and so on and so forth.
So so you're getting essentially a drone with a base station, right? So the base station, I'm trying to understand this. So let's say I drop off a base station somewhere that maybe it's not going to get messed with. and then that's both connected to the drone itself and obviously Wi-Fi or an internet connection.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, so whether you use a base station, in which case it's completely autonomous, requires no human intervention whatsoever, or you just have a person or employee on site that turns it on for you when you want to do it, either way works, then you can fly this drone remotely and stream it for any number of users at the same time, right? So utilities that have 100 teams of 2 people, including an inspector and a drone pilot going house to house to inspect infrastructure before the fire season every year, no longer need to send those teams door to door, can be doing this remotely, for example.
Yeah, what are the use cases for utilities?
Infrastructure monitoring, right? The utilities are already using today aerial inspections, whether it's drones or helicopters in a massive scale. But they have to do that today locally. They have to send somebody on site with a drone in their pickup truck and then go fly it. And then they try to look at the screen in the middle of the glaring sun and have a lot of trouble with it. So with this, those same drone pilots can be working from the office or from home. Those same inspectors can be working on it from the office or from home.
So in terms of what is the so beforehand, the problem was that essentially, so it's not, in other words, this is going to be way different than me just going to Best Buy, buying a little drone. I've got a little handheld unit. So they don't connect through that to the internet currently.
Correct. Drones today don't connect, prior to Drisit, don't really connect to the internet. They connect to a remote control that just controls it, and then you when you're done, you take your RF, your memory card, and you connect it to your computer, and you painfully upload the video. Drisit changes that so that you get real-time control and access to live streaming of the footage.
Yeah, the in terms of like the business, so Drisit itself, where did this, I mean, how did you know, okay, I'm going to start this company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was sitting in a cafe by the river in Arles, France, in the south of France. This is where Van Gogh painted many of his greatest works. And I was pondering about drones. I had just bought a drone. I had taken my youngest son, up a road trip up the coast of California to Oregon, and had just been completely wowed by the power of drones. We had flew it to look at marine life off the coast of California. We flew it to look at a waterfall from above the waterfall. This is like, this ability to see places that you couldn't see before just astounded me. But then I came home, and most of the time that drone was idle because the drone wasn't in the places I wanted to look. Right, it was useful when I was right next to those places, and then it would. And so I was thinking to myself, we're going to need billions of drones, because I can use just one cell phone and it fulfill all my needs. But for a drone, it's like real estate. It's location, location, location. If I want to make sure that my construction site is advancing well, it better be over my construction site. If I want to make sure that my home is secure, then it better be over my home. If I want to make sure that my daughter is safe, well, it better be near my daughter. And if I want to be seeing something interesting going on in some part of the world that I'm interested, it needs to be there. And so we all need access to many different drones, which would mean that billions of people need more billions of drones out there, until you come up with the idea of, okay, well, why can't we share these drones, and why can't we control these drones from a distance? And so once we came up with that insight, we built it. And I tell you, we've been letting people use this now, and it's every single one of them has been, who was it that said any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? I think it was Arthur C. Clarke. And that's exactly the impact we've had. The impression that people get is, what, I am flying this, and this is over there in California, and I'm in South America, and the first person who run into a bear, and it's kind of magical. I think it's the same kind of magic that people probably experienced when Graham Bell showed them the telephone. It's like, is that person really on that other place? And I'm hearing their voice. So it's the applications are really, like, every time I talk to a different industry, there's another application that comes up. Search and rescue, for example, is another obvious one.
Yeah. I mean, how are you working with the market then? Like, in terms of getting this in the hands of consumers, getting your first customers, growth, expansion. Because it seems like this is, once you have enough awareness, it strikes me as a highly investable service that you could offer, and technology.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is really exciting. So we're taking the same approach that I took with my last company, QLess. So with QLess, we eliminated waiting in line by letting people join a virtual line from their phone and then get notified as their turn approaches to show up just in time for service. Yeah. And it was similarly this massive problem where every industry has lines, every country in the world has lines. And so, where do you start? And I think we could have done it, had we done it in the arrogant way of saying, well, I know the best market is this, and we're going to pursue this, and this is the go-to-market plan. We probably would have gone either to theme parks, which is where I came up with the idea, because I hated standing in line for my kids, which turned out not to be the best initial market. They're sort of slow moving. or to restaurants, which is where every investor we talked to initially said, oh yeah, I waited in line yesterday for this restaurant. When are you going to sell this for me? And it turns out restaurants were not the best market for it either. And so what we did instead is we let the market guide us and tell us where they needed it most. And we stumbled upon higher education, which, by the way, is a huge use case for Drisit, right? It's like, imagine learning about the ancient Egypt by Drisiting through the pyramids instead of just reading about it dryly in a book. We found government use cases, we found retail use cases, and so on. And so I think we're doing exactly the same thing with Drisit. We are really talking with all kinds of industries and letting the market guide the adoption and the path.
So along the way, Alex, you decided to write a book, 100 Clues to a Happy Life. Why did you write this book?
So that's based on my kids, actually. So I have 3 kids, and they recently turned 18 and 21. So one of them went to college. The other one graduated college and just left and went to Princeton for a pre-doc in economics. And I was planning actually a trip I love traveling, and I was planning a trip to Africa from Cairo to Cape Town along the west coast of Africa. I'm not aware of anybody who's done that full trip like that in a Jeep or all-wheel drive, and it had some rough patches in the middle. And so I said, well, if I'm going to do this, I better first codify everything I would have taught my kids over the following years, just in case I don't make it back. And so I sat down to write that, and that became 101 Clues to a Happy Life. And once I wrote it, Steve Harrison, who is the publishing genius behind Chicken Soup for the Soul and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and a few other big hits, told me, Alex, you could have published this for others to read, and so I did.
All right. So what are the 101 clues? Where did they come from?
Oh, they come from painful lessons and mistakes learned through a life, right? It's, for example, one of them deals with, hiring a lawyer, right? And how important it is, how you hire a lawyer, and how important it is to choose it right. It's a really difficult decision to make. And so sharing what I learned on how to do that. Another one around how to really find your calling, and, doing a business life that actually, makes difference in the world and really creates something new and fulfills you. I have a friend who's a fellow Caltech PhD who recently left his job right after reading the book and found a much better job and, much more fulfilling. So that's been nice to see. Another one, deals with education, investments, education. Another one deals with how to travel and get paid for it. So there's 101 of them. But what's been most rewarding is seeing the reaction of people reading it, where, people say, not every one of the 101 clues will be helpful for every person, but I have not found anybody who hasn't found some clues there that can make a real difference and make them happier. And so that's been really rewarding to see.
Yeah. What is the role of money and income as it relates to a happy life?
So, I think that income follows when you do something that is both fulfilling for you and does something good for the world. So I don't think you start with an income in mind. You start by trying to make a difference and trying to do something that you really like, and the rest follows.
Well, Alex, you've had, you've been able to do some great stuff. You've certainly attracted a lot of investment income and so forth in previous roles. And so, that's why obviously I ask about, the role. Obviously, you've had the opportunity to, earn a lot of money. I suspect there's been times when you're younger, you don't have a ton of money. And so I'm curious about this intersection of money and happiness, and how money is an empowerer. But I hear this pretty frequently, is that, it's like if you're counting on, getting funded, okay, you got funded. Okay, you've been waiting on sales. And then you get to the sales. And it's like, if that's all you were really aiming for and you get the money, it's like your brain is going to look for something else. Oh, well, now I need X, right? And so I'm curious about, contentedness.
Yeah. So the classic question there, is it the journey or is it the destination? And to that, my answer is it's the company. It's neither. So yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't. Happiness comes from experiences, okay, and so money can help you get some of those experiences, but money per se does not buy happiness. For example, I find that giving people gifts is a much better use. If you're talking about employee compensation, for example, right, and you want to do something special for somebody, giving them a gift, an experience, or something like that is much more meaningful to their contributing to their happiness than a check, an extra check, right? The extra check goes to their bank account, and unless they were, at the line where they couldn't really afford anything, in which case it's very meaningful, it just is a number that changes. But you give them something that, in fact, this goes to gift giving, which is one of the clues in the book, right? For me, great gift giving is about finding something for the person that they wouldn't have known to get for themselves, right? Putting the time and effort to know the person enough to give them something that affects their quality of life. And that's where the gift is. And so that's why you can give a meaningful gift to the richest person in the world, because you can figure out something they didn't know to get to themselves for themselves.
Yeah. I see on your book or on your website for the book 101clues.com that you also are speaking and consulting on this topic. Yes,
not just on happiness, but also on leadership and on boards of directors. You mentioned getting funding as a big goal, and I would caution any entrepreneur who thinks that getting funding is the goal. It's absolutely not. I mean, it's, in a way, it's a liability, right? It's something that you have to deliver for. So the goal for companies is to deliver enduring value to customers. That's the only sort of persistent enduring goal. Funding is just a way to get there, and it's not the only way to get there, by the way.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I've had a lot of experience on how to do that right and how not to. And so I consult for companies trying to figure out, how do I raise money, but more importantly, how do I raise it on terms that are my terms and that ensure that, that my company stays in my hands and with the vision that I want to give it.
Yeah. All right. Your website, 101clues.com. That's 101clues.com. And that's where you can get the book, 101 Clues to a Happy Life. Of course, we talked about Drisit, and Drisit is spelled DRISIT.com. Alex Bäcker, you're the author of the book and CEO and founder of Drisit. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh, anytime.